The final cut is a masterpiece, but the first draft is a war zone. This is between the frames. In 2008, Marvel Studios placed a bet that would either build an empire or bankrupt the company. The chips were stacked on a notoriously risky star, a script that was barely more than an outline, and a director who told his actors to just make it up as they went along. The result wasn't the disaster everyone expected. It was the birth of a universe. It was Iron Man. When we see Tony Stark, trapped in a cave, hammering together his first crude suit of armor, we are not just watching a hero being born. We are witnessing the chaotic, lightning-in-a-bottle moment that defined the next decade of blockbuster filmmaking. This wasn't a well-oiled machine. It was a desperate gamble that paid off in ways no one could have imagined. How did a film with no finished script become the bedrock of the most successful franchise in history? The answer lies in the beautiful, creative chaos that happened just between the frames. To understand the sheer pressure on this film, you have to go back to a pre-MCU world. Marvel Comics had been selling off the film rights to their A-list characters for years. Spider-Man was at Sony, the X-Men and Fantastic Four were at Fox. To get back in the game, Marvel took out a massive, company-risking $525 million loan, collateralized against the rights to the characters they still owned, like Captain America, Thor, and a B-list hero named Iron Man. This was it. Their first ever self-produced film had to be a hit, or the company as we know it would cease to exist. The problem was, they started production without a usable script. What they had was a scriptment, a hybrid of a script, and a treatment that outlined the story beats but had very little dialogue. It was a skeleton waiting for someone to add the flesh and blood. And the person they chose to lead this charge? Robert Downey Jr. Today, he is Tony Stark. But back then, he was considered one of the most uninsurable actors in Hollywood. His immense talent was overshadowed by a public history of personal struggles. Casting him wasn't just a risk. It was a move that had insurance companies balking and industry insiders shaking their heads. Headlines from the time expressed outright skepticism. It felt like a recipe for failure, a studio betting its entire future on a hero most people didn't know, played by an actor everyone thought was a liability, using a script that didn't exist. The weight of this gamble was immense. If Iron Man failed, Marvel Studios would lose everything. This is where director Jon Favreau's background became the film's secret weapon. Coming from the world of indie comedies and improvisational theater, Favreau didn't see the lack of a script as a crisis. He saw it as an opportunity. Instead of forcing his actors to stick to underdeveloped pages, he threw them out. On set, Favreau would gather the cast and crew each morning, talk through the scene's objectives, and then let the actors find their way through it. He encouraged them to play, to experiment, to find the dialogue and the character moments organically. This wasn't just about letting actors riff. It was about building the story's entire emotional core through collaboration. The result was a set that felt more like a workshop than a blockbuster production. Take the iconic cave sequence. The witty, desperate, and brilliant back and forth between Tony Stark and his fellow captive, Yin Sen, wasn't meticulously scripted. It was born from Robert Downey Jr. and Sean Tube workshopping the scene, finding the gallows humor and the genuine bond between these two men on the day of shooting. The same was true for the film's central conflict. The tense, simmering dinner scene between Tony and Obadiah Stane, played by the legendary Jeff Bridges, was almost entirely unscripted. Bridges later said they would show up to work, not knowing what they were going to say. They'd workshop the scene, improvise lines, and Favreau would guide them toward the core of the drama. This process turned what could have been a disaster into a source of authentic, dynamic energy that you can feel in every frame. The actors weren't just reciting lines, they were living inside these moments, discovering their characters in real time. This improvisational spirit didn't just save the film, it created the very DNA of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Think about what defines the MCU at its best: heroes who are witty, charismatic, and feel like real people, even when they're flying in metal suits. That all started here. Tony Stark's signature blend of genius, arrogance, and vulnerable charm wasn't just written. It was performed into existence by Downey. The off-the-cuff, slightly chaotic energy became the brand. And nowhere is this more evident than in the film's final, game-changing line. The original script had a conventional ending. Tony would hold a press conference, read from prepared cue cards, and stick to the cover story that Iron Man was his bodyguard. It was the classic, secret identity trope that had defined superhero stories for decades. But on the day of the shoot, Robert Downey Jr. had another idea. At the end of the take, he looked out at the sea of reporters and just said it. The truth is, I am Iron Man. It was a pure, impulsive, character-driven ad-lib. The producers panicked. It broke the cardinal rule of superhero storytelling. They argued that revealing his identity would ruin any chance of a sequel. But Jon Favreau fought for it. He understood that this single, improvised line was more powerful than anything they had scripted. It wasn't just a cool moment, it was the ultimate expression of Tony Stark's character, a man who refuses to play by anyone else's rules. That moment redefined what a superhero movie could be. It told the audience that this universe was going to be different, more modern, and more grounded in the personalities of its heroes. The monumental success of Iron Man did more than just launch a franchise. It validated a whole new approach to making blockbusters. It proved that creative freedom and trusting your actors could be more valuable than a perfectly polished, rigid script. The chaos on set wasn't a bug, it was the feature. It allowed for a level of authenticity and spontaneity that audiences craved. Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, born from that improvisational environment, became the anchor for a 23-film saga, demonstrating that sometimes the biggest risks yield the greatest rewards. The foundation of the meticulously planned Marvel Cinematic Universe wasn't a blueprint. It was a jam session. It was the beautiful, unpredictable, and brilliant result of a studio betting it all on talent, trust, and a little bit of glorious chaos. The story of Iron Man reminds us that sometimes the most groundbreaking art isn't planned, it's discovered. Thanks for watching. If you love stories about the creative battles that shape the movies we love, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives, right here, between the frames.